On the second day of Christmas, Bambi gave to you shoe makeovers and a mirror made of pipe and hot glue. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Let's just get started, yes? So I bought these shoes 5 years ago or so, and I wore both of them about twice. I picked up this one right here last month and decided to wear it on my birthday. Tell me why I'm prancing about for like 5 minutes and the entire sole plopped away like a football. And then it started to shed. I was so ashamed. But it was a good thing I didn't leave the house yet, because like, yeah, that wouldn't be cool. I think I will stick to Doc Martens. Anyway, so these are my two dry rotted boots, and I'm going to be covering both of them. First, I took out the laces, and then I tried to scrape off as much dandruff as I could. Then I got some masking tape and wrapped it in pieces over the shoe, trying to get as much of the details as possible. So I had a plaster wrap here because I was going to wrap it in plaster wrap first and then put the masking tape over it, but I got lazy and I didn't do it. So yeah, okay. Then I marked out the separate pieces, added notches, and marked the different pattern pieces. When I finished marked out the pattern pieces, I separated them and then cut them. Then I made sure that all the pieces laid flat. We've no place to go. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. As you can see here, some of the pieces are actually curved, so I had to cut slits in them to release the curve so they laid flat. Now that all the pieces are flat, I laid them out on new paper and traced it out. I added seam allowance, which I didn't end up using, and then I laid the pattern on the fabric that I was planning to use and cut it out. The fabric I used is just normal gingham fabric, but it was a dress I got from eBay and it was the ugliest thing I have ever seen on me. Literally, there was no saving it, period. And I wasn't interested in matching up the pattern or anything like that since I didn't know what I was doing. And if it came out then I wouldn't have wasted a crap load of time on it, you get me? I gave Danny the boots to help me take the dandruff off, and when he gave it back to me, it was bald. So it was beautiful. So not as much shedding as before. So I got some Mod Podge initially and then I splat it on the shoe, but because the sole was pretty much fabric now, the Mod Podge soaked right through, causing the fabric not to stick. So if the boots that you're going to be using, and remember this is not a tutorial, this is a watch me fail video, but if you plan to do this, if the boots you're using still has its outer layer, then you should be able to use the Mod Podge. So then I just switched to fabric glue that I found like laying around. Like it was really cheap and it wasn't really good either. Oh my god. So as I was saying, I used fabric glue and I started off with the tongue and then I moved on to the front of the shoe and then the upper sides and then the little curves at the back. I should say right here, it's best to fill the front of the shoe with some old scrap fabric or sock or something. By this time, I hated how it was looking. It was dirty from the underneath part and the glue sticking to all my fingers and then dirt sticking to all my fingers and I was miserable. Plus it was 3 in the morning and I decided to just sit and cry for a bit and finish off half of one side. I thought I was going to be able to tuck the 1/8 seam allowance under and call it a day, but nah, not today, not today. I ended up just having to cut off all the seam allowances because the ends were fraying like crazy and it wasn't helping my issue at all. Any excess seam allowance that was at the top, I clipped and I folded it inwards and I stuck it down with glue. I wanted to keep the grommet detail, and in the beginning I was going to cover it over with fabric, poke holes, and then have that be the end of that. But seeing as this was beginning to be a big fail, I just cut away the fabric that was to cover it, and I darkened the grommet area by painting it black. I was just trying to get the sole right here as flat as possible, so I glued it down and smushed it down and tried to make it as flat as possible. So now I'm left with raw edges that look like crap since it looks like I cut it with a spoon. And by this time it was like 5 in the morning and I wasn't going anywhere to go and buy anything to hide the raw edges because I was like mad tired. So I decided to use the straps from the dress, but they were not long enough and I was at a point where I wanted to exert minimal effort on this project. Then I remembered I had a wonky black strap from another field project, so I got some trusty E6Ls and I slapped that peach on. That's pretty much what I'm doing here. It's just covering the raw edges and I kept them in place using clothespins, like a lot of clothespins. There was a little tab at the front of the tongue that I cut off before. I just glued it back on too. I just did that. So while that was drying, I went to the soles and I painted them black. They had initially had a grungy vintage vibe to it, but that wasn't what I was going for, so I just painted it black using leather paint. When the soles dried, I put them back onto the shoe using E6Ls and glue, and then I put in the laces and that shoe was done. Alright, so I wasn't going to fail this time again. I followed all the steps up until it was time to cut it out on the fabric. Instead, I placed the patterns on computer paper to make sure they fit, and then I added the seam allowance that failed me before. Because I was being cheap and didn't want to waste my transfer paper, I decided not to do the tongue or the back curve of the boots. I scanned the 2 pieces of paper, assembled all of the pictures I wanted to use, and then opened Photoshop. I opened the scanned files, and then I went to File and clicked to Place Embedded, and chose the picture I wanted to put at the front. I brought down the opacity so I could see the scan layer and resize it using the transform tool. And I chose where I wanted it to go. When that was done, I hid the image layer so I could just see the scan layer. I selected the pattern piece using the magnet tool, I think that's what it's called, and then I clicked on the picture layer and clicked on the mask. which is the white square at the bottom right with this black circle in it. Doing this puts the picture in the mask, or in the shape, the pattern piece, you get me? I brought back up the opacity, so this is how it's gonna look. Then I duplicated the scanned layer. The copy, the duplicate, is put on the top of the layer pile now. So then I click on multiply on the blended options of the duplicate copy. Doing this removes the white, so now I'm left with the lines on the pattern. I use the erase tool and move the words and markings and stuff that I didn't want on the pattern. And then I flattened the image, did the other two pattern pieces, and put my transfer paper in the printer and printed. And this is how it looks. The upper size came out super dark because we tested it twice and then we ran out of ink. And then I had to wait until the next day to buy more, but I wasn't going to do over those two pieces and waste paper, you get me? So I cut out the pattern pieces. Well, I cut out the fabric now. Oh no, I cut out the transfer paper pieces that we just printed. I followed the instructions that the transfer paper came with. Actually, no, I didn't follow the instructions. I had the heat on it way too long and some parts got burnt. But don't listen to me. Do what the instructions say, okay? Don't listen to me. This time, I wasn't playing around. I decided to do what I do best and sew this one. I made a facing for the curves and I stitched that. I turned it inside out and I top stitched it. Then I folded all of the pieces that needed to be folded and top stitched them down. I didn't press anything in case the heat messed up the print. AKA, I pressed something and it messed up the print. I glued the upper sides first, but stayed clear of the top part, and I let that dry. Then I took it to the sewing machine and edge stitched the top. I couldn't get footage of that because Danny was sleeping and I couldn't really hold the phone and show you while I was stitching because it was very uncomfortable. But yeah, I stitched the top and then I glued the excess under. So this is how it looks after I stitched the top part. I then glued the front on, and then while that was drying, I painted the tongue and the side curved pieces black. When that was done, I did the sole, as you can see here, in the other shoe. Made sure it was nice and flat. And then I glued the sole back on. So this is how it looks. Everything glued, sole back on. So now we're gonna poke the holes for the laces to go through. Then I got some grommets, used my trusty grommet punch thingy-majig, and I added grommets to the holes. And that was done. I added the laces, and we were done. Dun 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 dun.
Christmas is all about? I can tell you what Christmas is all about.
Chestnut roasting.
It is officially 5:35 on Sunday, December 15th. And I have a video to put up.
Jack Frost nipping at your nose. So I'm